afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session PS2, Seeing the Big Picture. I have the distinct honor of being the moderator for this session. My name is Mark Yedlin, and I'm aware that we have some very, very fine, interesting presentations for you, and I don't wish to take up any time away from our speakers. So our first presentation actually has two presenters. They are Vincent and Chelsea Adkisson. So Ben is a highway design manager at the Western Federal Lands with 21 years of experience in the transportation industry. He works primarily on projects in Yellowstone National Park, improving the park road system and focus on laying lightly on the land. Previously, he worked at Washington State Department of Transportation in design, construction, and traffic operations, with experience including interchange design, roundabouts, right-of-way acquisition, stormwater management, passenger rail service, signal operations, and traffic modeling. Ben is a ProSci certified change practitioner and WSDOT certified lean practitioner. He also coaches youth soccer and baseball. We won't ask questions on that later. Chelsea is a project manager and transportation engineer at Jacobs with nearly 10 years of experience in the industry. She has experience with local, state, and federal clients across the country, but focused on the West. Chelsea works with clients to leverage innovation and best practices to deliver creative and efficient solutions that enhance quality of life. With no further ado, we are going to get started. So I welcome Ben.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. We get the after lunch session, so hopefully everybody can stay awake. I'm going to be speaking about the beginning of our presentation about our project, and Chelsea's going to follow up to talk about some of the technical details about how we prepared the visualization. First, I want to ask a question. Who has ever heard of Western Federal Lands before? Wow, that is actually more than I expected. So for those of you who don't know, we are part of the Federal Highway Administration. Our office, we have three divisions, Eastern, Central, and Western. And our job is to design and build road projects for federal land management agencies for the rest of the government. So we work with primarily national parks, national forests, BLM, Fish and Wildlife, any agency that owns land and needs roads, we are there to provide that service. We start from planning, we have design, we have geotech, structures, survey, hydraulics, we have labs, and we have construction staff. So we design the projects, we administer the construction. Like Mark said in the introduction, I have worked primarily for the last 6 years. My primary projects have all been in Yellowstone National Park. They're our biggest partner in Western Federal Lands. And when we work on park projects, it's very different than DOT projects. I don't know if you can read here. This is the Yellowstone Arch. It says, for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. The park's mission is a lot different than a DOT mission. They're there to protect the land and to share it with the public. And when you visit a park, you're not just trying to get from point A to point B. You're there to experience your surroundings. Driving on the park roads is part of that experience. So we talk a lot about what's the visitor experience. We talk about laying lightly on the land because when we build a road, we want it to fit into the environment. We don't want to have big, massive fills and cuts. We want it to look like it belongs there. So we have a project that is called Norris to Golden Gate Phase 3. This is, the Golden Gate is a feature in Yellowstone National Park. It's a canyon, and it separates the Mammoth area from Swan Lake and points further south. This is what Golden Gate looked like in 1905. The first road through here was built in, I think, the 1880s. This is the original trestle. By all accounts, it was terrifying. Rudyard Kipling wrote about it. It's a wooden trestle. It's steep. It's wobbly. You're riding through here on a stagecoach. People did not enjoy it. But this is how you could get to the park, get into the rest of the park from Mammoth. So if you're going from Mammoth down to Old Faithful, you would follow this road. It was replaced in the 1930s by a viaduct. And you can see this is what the road through the Gardner Canyon looked like at that time. Concrete viaduct. You can see how the road really hugs the edge of the canyon. And that is part of this historic viewshed that we're trying to maintain with our projects today. If you see in the second picture, you can see a stagecoach rounding that corner. So in the 1930s, the Bureau of Public Roads, which was the predecessor to FHWA, tried to build a tunnel there. Unfortunately, it collapsed during construction, and they abandoned that effort and made it an open cut. And that all the rock they pulled out of there became a material source for other projects. And this is now what Golden Gate looks like today. So this is the same. You can see where the cars are parked. That's the same spot where the tunnel was. You can see how once that tunnel collapsed and they had to cut all that out, it really changed the way the face of that cliff looked because it moved it back. And aerial view you can see going through the canyon. So we have a project to widen the road and rebuild the road, bring it up to current standards through Golden Gate. Existing road is about 22 feet wide. We're going to widen it up to 30 feet. We've got rockfall issues here, so we want to put a rockfall ditch in so that we have less rockfall on the road. There was a rock that landed on the viaduct 2 weeks ago and put a hole in the deck, so we want to avoid that. The big concern is we do all this cut. What is the canyon going to look like when we're done? We can draw those lines on plans. We can show where our cut limits are. But is it going to feel the same? Or is it going to be wide open? Right now, when you drive through the canyon, you go around these curves and you get different views every time you go around a curve. And that's really important to the park to maintain that character of the road. And it's really hard to look at a 2D plan set and see, is it going to feel the same? It's even hard for our designers to know, is it going to feel the same when they're looking at a 3D model? So what we decided to do is do a visualization. And so we could all get on the same page and see, what will this look like? What will it feel like to drive through? And this is our visualization video. One of the other things we were looking at as part of this visualization is this new parking area. It's much bigger than the existing parking area. And we wanted to see how visible will the cars be when they're parked there? Because you really don't want to see light shining off windshields for a mile and a half as you're approaching. So it's actually, in this visualization, shows it's more visible than we wanted, so we made some changes after to shape the contours there, so to hide that parking lot a little bit more. And you notice that pillar of rock there, that was in the original road, and it was something that was important to maintain all throughout the improvements for the last 140 years. So we've been able to do that. Okay, I'm going to be followed by Chelsea. She's going to talk. Chelsea's from Jacobs. They did the actual, produced the visualization for our office. So she's going to talk about some of the process that went into that.
All right, thank you. Okay, so as you could see in the visualization video, we wanted it, well, hopefully you could see, we wanted it to look really realistic. So our team started with the Bentley Open Roads model as the backbone of the design, because we wanted this visualization to be a really high fidelity representation of what you would see once the actual construction was complete and what the final design would look like. We took that model and we merged it with the existing terrain to create a terrain surface that could provide that representation for our design. And then we went into Autodesk 3ds Max and Vray to do the render, to do the actual overlay of the visualization itself. And then Adobe Premiere and After Effects was utilized for the compositing and the motion graphics and the final compiling of the automation. So you can see on screen kind of the actual terrain model down there. It's a full model of the entire corridor that was designed and gives really representative slopes, what things are actually going to look like, what the actual elevations are. So the visualization is not just a representation of what it's going to look like, it's really true to the design. And then you can also see some of the in-process visualization development. From there, we took it into a virtual review studio, which is the screenshot that you see on screen, which was a really important part of our visualization process because it gave the opportunity for live markups and to create a really collaborative environment with the design team and the visualization team to make sure that what was being shown was representative of the design intent. And in some cases to maybe cause some conversation about if what was showing in the model was not what the design intended and if there were things that needed to be tweaked in that process. So I think in this screenshot, we were talking about that rock slope. The slopes that you saw in the video are representative of the type of material face that is intended. So as it was shown here, it was a little bit too much of that bumpy rock slope, and it's going to be more of the smooth cut slope that you see further back. So we changed the visualization so that you can really really get that feel of what it's going to look like, and so that the folks in the park reviewing it and all of the constituents can know if they're comfortable with how things are going to look, and that what they can expect. And then we took it from there to the next step of rendering. That can be a really time-intensive process, so we wanted to make sure that we had the virtual review studio first so that we're not rendering it repeated times, that we're just getting that smooth visualization once or twice, really finalizing it, and making sure that we get the video that we can post and share and people can access via a link for those conversations that we wanted to have with the entire group. And then that brings us to the visualization itself, which you got to see. And then it was shared with all of the stakeholders and the team through that method. So we have some fun pictures here. This is a picture of kind of at the base, right near the parking lots. You can see there's some folks standing on the side of the road, which is not usually ideal, but does happen a lot in Yellowstone. There's folks that, it's a beautiful place, so they want to get out of their cars. So this is the actual picture, and then this is the same shot from our 3D visualization. And that shows the new path that's going to go on there. We're going to be able to get pedestrians off of the roadside, but it really shows pretty much the exact same view and what that's going to look like, with the creek still meandering through, with the new bridge, how visible it's going to be from the road. Kind of enables you to make some choices about maybe the materials for the slatting on the alongside it, what type of things we can do to help it blend into the environment but still provide the usage that we need. Got another one here. So this is that parking area that Ben talked about where the former tunnel was potentially going to be, and now it's a highly utilized lookout area. And you could see in the video, we did a little pull-in section and looked back, so you could see the waterfall that all these folks are taking pictures of. And so that's a little bit of a fun addition in the video that wasn't necessary to communicate the design, but adds a little pizzazz. So from this view, you can see that once we widen it, the rock cut's going to look a little bit different. We're adding a protected path alongside it, but this is really the same view. It fulfills the same purpose, and it gives folks looking at it a lot of comfort and understanding of what that view is going to look like once the design's complete. It's also pretty exciting. You can kind of see in this image the real 3D aspect of it. It shows how you're going to see the very edge of the mountain coming through that canyon, and helps give people an understanding of what that feeling is going to look like and what elements in the entire surrounding topography you're going to be able to see because of their elevations. So that's most of the actual visualization itself. I'm going to let Ben wrap us up with some lessons learned on the experience. Stay up here for any questions.
So this was very well received by our partners in the park. We do work with some engineers in the Park Service, but a lot of the people that we work with on these projects are scientists, or they have other backgrounds. So I look at plans every day. I can usually envision what something's going to look like by looking at plans, but not everybody can do that, and we don't expect everybody to do that. This was a really great eye-opener for some of the people on our projects. They finally understood this is what it's going to look like. And I actually was in a meeting 2 weeks ago, and they asked, "Hey, are we going to do another video like we did on this project for this next one that we're working on?" Because that made such a difference for me. So it was great feedback. It also made a big difference in decision making. So the park was really reluctant to commit to an option when there was still some doubt about how things were going to turn out. This made them a lot more comfortable with making a decision and moving forward with the plan. And if I could do this again, I would have started this a lot earlier. We were after 70% before we decided to do this visualization. And we could have probably accelerated the project a little bit more, got some decisions made earlier if we had done this earlier in the process. I don't think it would have hurt. It's a little bit more tricky when you don't have quite as refined of a design, but I think it would have been worth doing. What are your questions?
In these kinds of studies, it seems like a before and after kind of study. Sometimes you see split video as the car drives through, you show before at the bottom and then, or vice versa at the top. Were there some consideration ever given to that so that people can see, okay, here's what I can see now and here's what I'm going to see as I drive through this at the same time?
We didn't really consider that for this project. There was another project where we used that a little bit more. It wasn't the focus for what we wanted to convey here. Yeah, it definitely is a good technique.
Any other?
Did you use drone for the creation, drone data photogrammetry or anything for the creation of the reality mesh for existing?
No, so we have terrestrial survey, aerial, LiDAR, and photogrammetry. The Park Service has been very reluctant to allow any drones in any parks until this summer. So as some of you know, there were some floods in Yellowstone this year. We did some emergency projects. We made great use of drones. It was phenomenal how much it made an impact. And it was a lot easier for the park to accept that because the public wasn't around. The big issue is if, the average visitor sees a survey drone flying around, they're gonna think, well, I can fly my drone now, and that's what they wanna avoid.
So how did you get with having drone capture, how did you get the nice big cuts like that? Were those scanned or?
Yeah, we have flown fixed wing aerial LiDAR, yep.
So it was LiDAR used for like the base mesh and then the design model built into that.
Yep.
First of all, great video. Thank you. What made you decide to, since you started with open roads, what made you decide to move away and not use Lumen RT compared to Gray and was it 3D Max?
Yeah.
So Jacobs is working with us on another project in Yellowstone, and they produced a visualization for that project, and that's the Yellowstone River Bridge, brand new bridge replacement. And that went over very well with the park and with us. We really liked the way it looked, so we thought, we can do the same thing here. We were also trying to figure out, do we have the capability to do this internally? So we have Lumen RT, we've used it a little bit. It's not nearly as detailed as what we got this way. We learned very quickly that no, we don't have the capability to do this ourselves. With how much time and went into developing it and all of the software that we just don't have, it made more sense. It makes more sense for us to go outside, I think, in the future as well, if we're gonna do more.
And we have used Lumen RT for some similar efforts going from open roads. I think for this type of effort, we really wanted to have those like slightly more artistic elements than what you can get through that program. Like the rock face walls are like pretty manually designed to be representative of what we expect, and kind of adding in that water feature, just taking it beyond a representation of the model to the next level of like experiencing the feel that the driver would feel.
And I know when we did the review with the modelers who were actually developing it, it was an interesting challenge for them to represent all that the way they did. They enjoyed it, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Favorite question for all of them. How long did it take?
To do the visualization, or obviously the design took a long time.
Yeah, no, the visualization part, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure on an hours basis how long it took. It wasn't an extremely lengthy process as far as like they handed over the design. It was probably a few weeks of back and forth until we had the visualization. Is that your recollection?
Yeah.
I'm trying to dig back.
I
into
remember
memory.
looking at the bill, and the hours were itemized, and it was a lot. And that's why I say we couldn't do it internally, because they had multiple
Yeah.
people working on it, and we didn't have the staff. But I don't remember now how many hours it was.
Yeah, the time frame as far as the cumulative hours is a bit different because there is a whole team that really helped put it together.
I'm gonna use my position as moderator to throw in just one more.
Okay.
First of all, great presentation. You mentioned that you would have liked to have started early
Mhm.
what you're learning. So if you had more time, what is it that you would have done maybe a little different? Is there anything? Because it looks beautiful the way it is.
So this came out exactly the way that we wanted it to. But by the time we developed it, we pretty much already committed to the solution. And this just helped reinforce people's decisions. We're working on another project where we are still in the alternatives analysis phase. And we've got multiple alternatives that have pros and cons. So what I'm thinking now is once we get a little bit further with those, maybe we model multiple alternatives and then give people a chance to see those, and it'll help with selecting and winnowing those down.
Very good. Thank you very much.